Okay, Shavua Tov, good vach, everybody. Great to see everyone. And we have a chash of a panel, amazing panel today. And we're talking about parenting, Shalom Bayit, and whatever else comes up, really. And I have a lot of index cards here. So let's start with the person, the doctor. Are you a rabbi or not yet?
No.
Okay. To me, you're a rabbi. The Dr. Zimmerman, can you describe yourself in 2 or 3 sentences?
I'm a clinical psychologist. I run a group practice. We see a very wide array of issues, both children through adulthood. I also train rabbis in mental health awareness and consult to countless organizations and yeshivas.
Wow. So you're like a rabbi to the rabbis?
Yeah, sort of. Or maybe a shrink to the rabbis.
Okay, very good. Then we have the CEO of Emet, Rabbi, not doctor, Rabbi Akiva Rutenberg. Can you introduce yourself in 2 to 3 sentences?
Nice to see everyone. Shavua Tov. I wear multiple hats as one of the founders and directors of Emet, a outreach organization working primarily in Queens with the college, young professional, young couples, not such young couples of the Queens community. And I also have a degree in clinical social work, so I do quite a bit of couples relationship counseling, primarily before marriage, but also during marriage as well.
And thank you, Rabbi Rutenberg. And Rabbi Rutenberg really is helping a lot of Jews, Baruch Hashem. And then, last but certainly not least, we have Rabbi Meirov. Would you like to introduce yourself in 2 to 3 sentences?
I need no introduction. But first of all, I got to say I'm very honored to be here with these 2 distinguished rabbis, rabbi doctors, and it's a big zechut to be here. I mean, Baruch Hashem, I'm involved with Chazaq since our inception 18 years ago, primarily dealing with public school boys and girls, and dealing with Shalom Bayit as well. And I have a zechut to be one of the rabbanim in this Beit HaKnesset, Baruch Hashem.
Well, Baruch Hashem. Okay, so to everyone that's here in our studio audience and everyone who's watching, the fact that we want to improve our Shalom Bayit, even though it's great, we want to make it even better. The fact that we want to improve our parenting, the kids don't come with instructions necessarily, is amazing. And I just want to, the best thing that I learned in rabbinical school is that sometimes people don't necessarily listen to the advice, but a tefillah prayer always works. So I want to give us a collective prayer that with Hashem's help, we should all make our Shalom Bayit even better, and we should be the kind of parents that we really want to be and raise fantastic children. Okay, we're going to start off with a layup question. Should a boy in an Orthodox high school be allowed to watch the Super Bowl? I think it may be coming up. I don't know who did it, so please don't tell me if you know. And it says here in parentheses, not halftime. During that time, they will be steiging, of course. So since Rabbi Meirov, you mentioned that you deal with high school kids, so what do you say? Should a boy in Orthodox high school be allowed to watch the Super Bowl?
I told my son not to come here. He sent you the question? But the truth is, Rabotai, it really is a very difficult question. I think every person has to know the environment that their children are in. What high school is he in? What kind of friends does he have? Sometimes if you're too tough on your child when everyone else is doing something, it might backfire. So you got to know exactly, what's going on in his life and the life of his friends. I personally feel that I think today the sporting industry, especially football, has become a very provocative industry. So many things that you don't want, your average adult to see, even with the commercials and the halftime show and everything else. I'm sure you've all heard about it. So if you could somehow shield yourself from the Super Bowl, you can't say, hey, son, you can't watch it. In the meantime, you're hanging out with your friends watching it. You hear? So if you could maybe do some sort of family gathering, get together, order all the chicken poppers and all the sandwiches in your family and get everyone together and have a good time and make it exciting. Without it, let them just find out the score. Great. If not, then again, every single situation has to be judged accordingly, because you do not want this to backfire on you, Chaz v'Shalom.
Okay, excellent. Dr. Zimmerman, what says you on that subject? should a boy in an Orthodox school, be allowed to watch the Super Bowl?
So I liked what Rabbi Meirov said in terms of you have to know every situation is different. And in general, the idea of getting 1-minute sound bites to run your family or your Shalom Bayit is probably not such a good idea. So hopefully you'll take whatever we say in the context of generalized advice. There's a massive difference amongst children and your family. Right, Rabbi Meirov talked about not being hypocritical, but also you have to pick your battles, and you have to know if this is even a battle. Meaning, for a kid who's watching everything else and watching movies, then this is not your battle. Okay, maybe halftime is your battle. For a kid who wants to be in yeshiva, but you're throwing a Super Bowl party, don't pull him out to come to your Super Bowl party. It's very hard to teach seichel. The most important thing is to really know yourself, know your value system, and know your kids. And Rabbi Meirov was talking about a lot of times we get excited about one thing, and we lose the big picture. Remember that parenting is the long, long haul. Down the line, how are they going to react to this, right? If you took a stand on this and he goes tomorrow to yeshiva and all the kids are talking about the game, did you win or lose? So take a long view of how am I advancing the cause, and always put the relationship and the feelings ahead of any specific behavior, as long as it's within the confines of whatever's not blatantly usher.
Okay. Beautiful. Okay, next we're going to go to we're going to try to toggle between Shalom Bayit and parenting, and maybe some combination questions. Okay, this is for Rabbi Rutenberg. Fun date night. Any good ideas that do not involve food?
I would suggest that anything you do that doesn't include cell phones in front of you is a date night. It doesn't make a difference if you're home, if you're at a restaurant, if you're going bowling, if you're going for a walk. My very, very strong view, and this is my own personal experiences as well as many others that I've had the opportunity to talk to and help, is just getting those devices away. Okay? Already in my book is called the date night. So a date night can happen at home. A date night can happen, it can be very, creative, but literally shutting off both spouse's phones, or what I advise is if you have to keep a phone on because you have babies at home or you might have an emergency or something like that, have the spouse who is less addicted to their phone keep their phone on. Okay? Try not to fight about who's less addicted. It's usually pretty obvious if we're honest with ourselves. And I can't tell you how much connection there's created by shutting off the phone. It's very, very important to actually shut it off. These devices can be shut off, okay? And it's legal.
How do you do that?
Okay. My understanding is it's legal in 48 states to shut off your phone, okay? You can turn it off, and already there's a connection. The moment the phone is turned off, there was a study that was done where they actually had people take away their phones on a date or on a time out with their spouse, and they wanted to see the connection that couples would have if they weren't allowed to look at their phones. And believe it or not, it wasn't that much more connected than if the phones were in front of them. But when they had them shut it off or take it away, literally take it away, the connection went up dramatically. So just the fact that we have a phone in our pocket, that's how addictive these devices are. It takes us away from connection. So my answer, I'm really not answering the question, but my non-answer answer is it's more about what you don't do than what you do, and you can be very creative with that.
Okay. All right. I like that. You put away the cell phone. It's already a starting point. And of course, going out to dinner could be, get expensive and fattening and everything else. So one of the things that my wife and I have started doing on date nights is there's about 100,000 different types of Shalom Bayit books. So we started reading them together. It's like a fun date night. It's like date night and Shalom Bayit like rolled into one. And if you have your phone out, it's not going to be good. But that's an idea, one of many. You could do activities. You go get some fresh air, go for a walk, keep your phone away. Read a nice Shalom Bayit book together. There's at least 100,000 out there. I don't know why there's so many. So, okay, next question is, this is going to be interesting. Let's start maybe with Rabbi Meirov. thoughts on homeschooling. Chazaq is busy putting many students from public school into yeshivas. So what if a parent says to you, hey, I got a great idea. We're going to homeschool. What do you think about that?
So the truth is, I'm not such a mumche and expert on homeschooling. I think there's an advantage to being in a regular school environment, in a regular yeshiva environment. They get to see other kids. They get to grow. They have challenges, communication. So there's definitely a tremendous advantage, obviously, with going to a yeshiva environment. However, if a parent feels, in their specific case, homeschooling might be more effective, and it's very well possible, then you should definitely entertain it, but make sure it's done right, and your children are not going to be, left behind on some of the core matters in Judaism and secular matters as well. So if it's done right, and your family feels it's the right approach, maybe you have a rabbi, a rebbitzin, or a mentor, or some other individual that's an expert that can guide you in the situation, then yes, it is a possibility. But keep in mind that you are going to take away from the positivity that being in a school environment, including the fighting and the arguments, which is also there to help build your child up as well. So, obviously this has to be done with the proper guidance if you choose to do so.
Okay, very good. Next question for Dr. Zimmerman. How can spouses prioritize? Say that word again? Prioritize. Prioritize. I'm sorry, English is not my first language. How can spouses prioritize?
Skip it, go ahead.
The relationship while fulfilling their parenting responsibilities? Being parents and at the same time husband and wife. It's so hard. Without escaping to Florida, of course.
So I think that's probably what you're saying is the most important thing to acknowledge, that everything here, it's a lot easier said than done. And what people mistake is that they think the kids are demanding, the kids have all these needs, so naturally the kids pull for the prioritization. You end up providing for them first. And you think, okay, I'm being a better parent, we'll pick it up on the spouse. And the data is pretty clear that the best parenting for your kid is a good relationship with your spouse. And now that's, again, hard to do. So it does require consciousness on both people's part, carving out time and making sure that there's respect to one another first and foremost, setting limits on where the kids can come and not come when you have some alone time, and even working to work together on your parenting so that's a unit. It's not like, okay, mom's busy with the kids a whole day, and dad comes home after Meirov when everybody's asleep, and then for Shabbos. That we're in this together, but I think it's very, very crucial that people know the predictive nature of the attachment between husband and wife predicts how your kids' own self-worth is going to be and their relationships. So the stronger your connection and attachment is, that's going to predict theirs. I'm sorry, might be bad news for a lot of the people here, but no, that's what we're here to really improve, strengthen that, prioritize it, and keep that as a factor. And each spouse usually needs, this one needs time to, okay, we got to check in on a date. This one needs, no, I need your help, come home early. And you need to be able to respect one another where you jointly need and how you're prioritizing putting yourselves ahead.
Okay, very good. Question, Rabbi Rutenberg, would you like to answer that?
I would just like to add.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Zimmerman. I would just add a component, which is that I think you really have to take a step even further back, which is prioritization in general. In other words, like Stephen Covey talks about in the 4 quadrants in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, that being able to prioritize, which he calls quadrant 2, which are the non-urgent but important things, is the greatest predictor of whether a person is going to have a really fulfilling, meaningful life that they're really in so many different ways. So learning to prioritize internally, which is super, super hard today, because we're being bombarded nonstop by these like WhatsApp messages and constant, being pulled in so many directions. And it's exactly at the time in our lives when our kids need us the most that we're being pulled the most. You see some people who are already in post a little bit closer to retirement. They're looking to be pulled. Look, can somebody but Hashem made it. This is the challenges of our life is sometimes a lot of bracha, right? We're being pulled by our parnassus, sometimes successful parnassus, being pulled by our kids, by our spouse. The fact that we're being pulled in so many directions is a bracha. But the answer, I believe very much, is to learn, and I'm struggling with myself, so if anyone knows how to do it, please let me know. But is to learn how to prioritize internally, because all growth has to start inside yourself, and then with your spouse, and then with your kids. It has to start with yourself. So if we can learn to prioritize better ourselves, our own priorities, it will make it easier to create time for our spouse and for our kids. I think I'll share just a brief, Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, who started the Musar movement, he's accredited to saying, Rabbi Yisrael felt that every person should do a half hour or 20 minutes of Musar a day as a necessity. And somebody came to him and said, Rabbi Yisrael, I only have time to learn a half hour a day. What should I learn? And they knew he was going to say Musar, but what about Gemara? What about Chumash? What about Halacha? So he gave a brilliant answer, and he said, learn 20 minutes of Musar, and you'll find out that you have much more time than you thought. Right? So I always think about that answer because so often when we think we don't have time, it's because I spend 3 hours a day on social media and checking the news and checking the news again and checking the news a third time, and if we prioritize ourselves better and really put anchors and rocks in our life, we can have a lot more time.
Okay.
Can you repeat the book that you just said?
It's called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. It's one of the best secular books, I believe, out there.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Rabbi Rutenberg. Okay, Rabbi Meirov, here's a question that you probably deal with a lot. How do you navigate conflicts related to extended family dynamics, such as in-laws or religious observance differences, while maintaining unity in your marriage? So basically, the parents are still parenting, even though the kids who are now married, and they have different religious patterns, different ways of communication, different, basically everything.
Right.
And the couple's trying to be within themselves a unit, and they have to be respectful to their parents and everything at the same time. What do you say?
This is obviously something that we probably all come across. The family dynamics could be very complicated sometimes, and we make it even more complicated by the way we react. I always tell people, after you get married, honestly, after you got married, Avi, did you want to have Shara Bracha for 7 days? Or do you prefer to go out to Disneyland or some other nice, beautiful place? Be honest with us.
Still waiting for the honeymoon.
Right? Let's be realistic. 7 days of seeing your mother, your father, your grandmother, your grandfather, your uncles, your aunts, your brothers and sisters, 7 days. They were driving us nuts to get married. Now that we're married, we have to see them for a full week. Why not go on a nice vacation? And one of the reasons is, the musal behind it is, to tell you when you get married, first of all, it's not a fantasy world. You start off your marriage by going out to a vacation, you're giving yourself a false premise of what marriage is all about. And to tell you that marriage is all about family. So even though they drove you nuts for all these years to get married, now that you are married, realize, spend time with your family. But like you said, there's sometimes friction and everything else that may come across. There's a guy that once went to his boss. He says, listen, my mother-in-law has a birthday coming up this Tuesday. Can I get a full day off on Tuesday? Because we're making a big party for her. So the boss says, absolutely not, no day off. He's like, thank you so much for understanding me, Baruch Hashem. So in reality, you have to realize, there's a lot of people, we don't realize that we clamp down on our wife or husband. You're not going to their house, not going to their party. Zelo beseder, it's not right. If she's there, I'm not showing up. If he's going to be there, I'm not going to be joining for Shabbat. This kind of behavior is not the derech HaTorah. It really isn't. It's a yortzeit or it's a Shabbat Chatan. There's 30, 40, 50, 100 people there. You can't make such conditions to your spouse. So again, family is very important. It is the foundation of a marriage. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to spend all your time with that individual. But when there's a family gathering, that's something you have to be part of. In terms of religious observance, that was probably the main part of the question. This is very sensitive. And a person has to know what's a chumrah, what's a stringency, what's considered a mikar adin, what's a must. Sometimes people, especially the Baalei Tshuva, they dilute everything. They don't know what's, nice to do, okay to do, forbidden to do, and they make a whole war about things that never should have been a war to begin with. So I think anytime you have anything of religious matters, definitely discuss it with your rabbi / rebbitzin to give you the proper guidance, because you never want religion to turn into a fight. That's the last thing you ever want to happen. Now, are there times where maybe the door has to be closed? Yes. Not for you to decide. That's something for a mumche, for an expert to decide together with you and your spouse.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, next question. This is for Dr. Zimmerman. Who is in danger of being addicted to inappropriate things on the internet? Who is in danger? And what fences should be put in, if any? Because a lot of people, we all have this cell phone, right? Almost everyone. Probably everyone in this room. Probably everyone in the world. Almost everyone in the world. And if not the cell phone, then a computer. Who's in danger? Should we all be worried? Men, women? What fences should be put in?
So I think this is one of the harder things for us, especially in the Jewish world, to acknowledge, is just how human we are. The Gemara makes a very clear statement: "Ein apotropos larais." There's nobody who can take responsibility for sexual matters. Obviously, there's different levels in terms of arousal, desire, struggles between genders and between ages, and there are many predictive factors of what's going to lead somebody to addiction. But the kind of notion that I'm good, it's meaningless to me, you're living in a self-delusion. Forget what you're deluding everybody else. You're not connected to your true essence, and just go out to that expensive restaurant when you're splurging on the date, and notice if your spouse notices the opposite gendered waiter and is spending a lot of time looking at it, how that feels. Right? Very rapidly you'll see, oh, looking at something else disturbs you as your spouse looking at the waiter or waitress and think, oh, that person's very handsome or that person's very attractive, bothers you. We're all human. We notice, and it affects us even if we're not recognizing it. So we all have to be very careful. And the same way we talked about with the Super Bowl, we have a very, very complex message when we have devices constantly unfiltered and everything that we tell our kids, no, that movie's not for you, that show's not for you. Now, in terms of addiction potential, obviously, those who in general are struggling with almost any serious emotional issue. So if you have anxiety, what do you want to do to relax and retreat into a fantasy world? This. If you have depression, you want to feel good? This. Sadly, so many roads lead to technology issues because it's the perfect escape into a realm of fantasy, and a realm of illusion, a realm of self-pleasure. So today, we're dealing with this in an unprecedented fashion where countless roads lead there. So there are many, many pathways. Obviously, the person who in general is more compulsive, they end up struggling, doing things over and over again, even if they'd rather not, they get very into things, are going to be highly vulnerable to this. And obviously, the bigger their emotional struggle in general, there's going to be a higher likelihood for them to fall into this in a very serious way. But again, going back to it, it can't just be words. Oh, the rabbis put out proclamations, we have asifas, we have filtering, we have tag events, and then, okay, I have this event, I have this device, I have this device, and most of the calls I get, sadly, are, yeah, I took it off for my kid's report, and then the other kid watched it. I get multiple calls a week about kids who are stumbled into highly, highly inappropriate things because they had access when nobody's trying to do anything bad. Something lapsed them, they're not vigilant about, they don't have multi-layer safeguards for this, and even at the child level, this is happening constantly.
So what fences should be put in?
So the first fence is obviously, be mindful of what devices you have in your house and whatnot. Today people think, oh, my kid only has a dumb phone. The dumb phones, some of them are the hardest things to filter, and you can access anything. Today, for $35, your kid can go to a Target, a grocery store, and pick up a Wi-Fi enabled device. You have to know what's flying. So the first thing is awareness, then obviously modeling. How do you deal with device? What safeguards do you have? Then Obviously, you have to keep very close eye on the emotional well-being of your spouse and your children. And if you see something awry, go that. If you see somebody spending a great deal of time in the bathroom, if they're spending a lot of alone time, they disconnect from those social engagements to pull into their world, those are all starting to be telltale signs that something's going in the wrong direction. The best safeguards is healthy connection, healthy attachment. So we talked about the sur meirah, staying away from negative. The best thing is a person feeling good about themselves, their relationships, and their connection to Hashem. The more we have positivity in ourselves, with others, and with God, that is the best safeguard. And all the research and all the rabbis are in alignment with this. The best thing is don't fight as much evil. Yes, put serious safeguards in place, but build positive.
Okay, beautiful.
Thank you, Dr. Zimmerman. The only thing I would just add to that is you touched on it, but just to, especially when it comes to our children, teenage children, even this has become an issue even with preteens. You know, the best advice I could possibly give you is to have the type of relationship with your child that your child would consider talking to you about something going on. To have a situation where you're going to be the first person your child talks to, that may not be practical. But I like to say, like, if your child had 5 people they wanted to speak to about this, you would be potentially in the top 5, maybe number 5. But and I think the way you do that is twofold. One is, like Dr. Zimmerman said, it's not just the sur meirah, but it's the aseh tov. It's finding ways to connect, and which is very, very hard today. But finding ways to connect, finding common language, even if it might be sports, finding a common language, finding a way to connect with your kids. I'll just share a personal example. I have a 15-year-old who goes to yeshiva in Riverdale, and he's not home a lot during the week. So recently he got into chess. And I try to play chess with him once every night. It doesn't work out every single night.
Playing chess.
No. That's not the issue. But I noticed something fascinating. I noticed that when I play chess with him, he often pauses and tells me something going on in his life. And I don't think he would have told me that had we not sat down to play chess. And the chess has become like a modality of communication where it's not like, oh, I have a problem, so I want to sit down with you. So that's the first thing. Trying to be proactive, quadrant 2, and find ways to connect with our kids before the problem begins. Once the problem is already there, it's already much harder to address. The second thing is, when something happens, how you respond is so crucial. I can't say, if I would say so many times, you guys will get annoyed. It's so crucial how you respond. So if you see something inappropriate on a device, and you see that your child looked at something inappropriate, the natural inclination, the natural response is to like give them a speech, or to get upset, or to like make the child feel that they're bad because they did this thing. And I think when we do that, first of all, your child will for sure not tell you what they did the next time. And I also think it's bad chinuch, and I'm sure it'll come up, you know. Do you want to address that?
We didn't plan this. This is our first time meeting, actually. But I wasn't going there because I thought they were talking about sort of these blockage safeguards. But Rabbi Rutenberg saying, for those who don't know, I wrote a book called From Boys to Men, Guiding Our Sons and Students in the Ways of Kedusha. It's actually not just that we wait for this conversation. If we're not going to go proactively and educate them first before they encounter this, both about their bodies, what's changing, they're going to hear it in camps, on the bus, in school, other places, then it's already a little too late. We always want to jump in first with as much proactive education as possible, and the book provides both guidance on how to have those conversations at each developmental stage, and also how to deal when something inappropriate is going on or somebody is struggling. And the book also has bibliography for some female versions, not identical, of that. And so that's another piece that we really need to step into, is proactively parenting for every difficult life challenge, and this is one of the greatest challenges our generation is facing. We can't wait to stick our heads in the sand and expect things to go smoothly. We have to step up our game tremendously.
Okay.
You have a copy of the book?
I have a bunch in my car, but oh no, I don't even have my. But it's readily available on Amazon, Mosaic Press,
say the story again.
From Boys to Men, Guiding Our Sons and Students in the Ways of Kedusha. And it's deeply rabbinically involved. The Gedolim were involved in. Aaron Feldman, Shlita, one of the most senior Rosh Yeshivas in America, wrote the forward, and many Gedolim were deeply involved in the process.
Okay. Should we go Meirov opinion on this? Can you share some insight on this also?
Yeah.
So just to add to what both Dr. Zimmerman and Rabbi Rutenberg said about the kesher that you should have with your kids. You said top 5? You should be in the top 5, is that what you said? That the kids come to? How do you really get to that point that the kids are open to talk to you? It's a big avodah if you really think about it. I mean, many people tell me, Rabbi, my son, 14-year-old, suddenly he goes to his room, closes the door, doesn't talk to us. And how do we prevent that with your next child? And really, Rabotai, I think it's very important. When you have an opportunity to be in the car driving your 5-year-old boy or girl to school, or picking them up from the bus, or driving them to the supermarket, those are 7 minutes where you could just talk to them. No, how was school today? What went on in the bus? Oh, Abba, you know what happened in the bus? This kid did this and this kid did that. They're opening up to you. And then every day or every other day you have the same conversation about something that happened, someone that did, someone that said something in school, someone that got punished in school, someone that hit him in school. They're having this conversation with you as a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old and 30. Next thing you know, when they have their first challenge, who's part of the top 5? It's you, because they've been doing this with you for the past 10 years. Right? So if you don't have these small talk, these conversations with your kids when they're little kids, then it's going to be very hard for them to open up to you when they're teenagers. That vadai. And maybe just one more tip to what they were saying. Matisyahu Salman, who passed away, what was it, a few months ago, one of the greatest Baalei Musar here in our generation, a tip that I heard him say once when it comes to the internet and computer usage in general, even if you have a filter, he says, if there was a concept of internet in the times of David HaMelech, in times of Chazal, he says, I have no doubt, he says, they will make an Isur Yichud. Just like a man and woman cannot be secluded in a room together, so too you should not have seclusion with the internet by yourself. And one etzah he gave, besides the filtering that we all discussed, one etzah that he gave is that all the computer software, you have a laptop or a computer in your house, it should always be facing the open area. It should never be a situation that the kids are sitting and doing their homework and the computer is facing the wall. When you pass by, you don't see what's going on. You should set up the computer in the house where it should be in an open area where the man, the woman, the parents as well, and the kids always use it, and it's going to be, it's visible. We're not hiding anything. Nothing is being, hidden from anyone. This way it takes away that extra urge of doing something wrong because you know that you're not facing a wall, rather you're facing an open area in the house.
If I could just add
Sure.
one more point. I did have an opportunity to read a lot of your book, and it's a great book. And I think what the point that I was making, you talk about a lot in the book, which is the importance of recognizing that the desire to look at these type of things is normal. And that's so important that the child understands that he's not or she's not abnormal. They're normal, but it's not healthy for them. It's not good for them. It's something that's going to affect them adversely later on. And I think that distinction, just in addition to what Rabbi Meirov said about communication, is being non-judgmental. Non-judgmental is not something you can fake, right? It's either you are judgmental or you're not judgmental. So in your heart of hearts, if you're not judgmental, if you see these things, and as upset as it might make you, if you're trying to understand where the child is coming from, that's going to make a very big difference. I remember Rabbi Yaakov Horowitz shared with me once that in Europe, there was a lot of people who were going away from Judaism. And there was a guy who came to his Rabbi, his Hasidic Rabbi, and he said about his own son, he goes, my son is crazy. He's dancing with the shiksas, the non-Jewish girls, and he's eating chazer, he's eating pork. And the Rebbe puts his hand, it's a very wise Rebbe, puts his hand on his student's shoulder, and he says to him, he says, my student, he goes, your son is not crazy. He said if he was dancing with the chazers and eating the shiksas, he would be crazy. He says he's normal, he just doesn't have the right guidance. He needs the right guidance and the right approach.
Beautiful. Okay, very good. Okay, so next question. Let's start with Rabbi Meirov. My wife says I lack compassion. How do I get better at compassion? How does a man be more compassionate?
So, Rabotai, you should know that if your wife says that to you, she's not looking to hurt your feelings. Or if your husband says something similar to you, he's not looking to hurt your feelings either. When someone says that, and it's your other half, that means something is hurting them inside. So instead of getting offended, try to understand them. Now, how you say it also makes a big difference. But assuming you're saying it the correct fashion, understand them and see where they're coming from, and have a heart-to-heart talk about it. Because a relationship is meant to go on for 50, 60, 70 years. You want to be, B'ezrat Hashem, till Adei Zikna, right? To see children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. So you want to have also a stable relationship. So when your spouse tells you, listen, you don't have any compassion, that means that she feels there's something wrong. Maybe you're being too aggressive, maybe you're being too demanding. And a lot of people in this community maybe come from homes where it was accepted in the old country for the man to be the more dominant figure. And when the woman speaks, you open your eyes nice and wide, and she's quiet after 4 seconds, right? But that's not the right approach. We have to realize that Rambam says that you have to respect your wife more than you respect yourself. And if you have money, you make sure you spend it on her. At the same time, the wife has to respect her husband and give him extra love and everything else. We have to realize it's a two-way street. It's not enough to just be a compassionate guy in shul and at a workplace everyone loves you and you're a Zimmerman, hey, Ruven, you're here. But when you come home, you're like the Taliban, she's scared to see you. And the kids are hiding under their beds. A person has to have the right balance of being the good guy in the shul and also being the good guy at home. Yes, you got to have a certain level of leadership at home, but not too much fear and not causing trauma to the people around you. So yes, if he or she ever comes to you and saying that you are lacking compassion, I think Be'emet, take it like a man if your wife says it to you, and try to understand her, and try to, B'ezrat Hashem, maybe tweak some things in your life.
Beautiful. I think, first of all, it's a beautiful point. One of the things you said right away, seems like you're very experienced at dealing with these issues. It's so easy for us to take something personal when the spouse says something to us and starts, what? You're talking to me? And just get defensive and it snowballs into a fight. And you realize, I'm married, Baruch Hashem, over 25 years. After some time, you realize your spouse is not out to get you. Your spouse is your best friend. You're a team. They want to work together with you. And when they're saying things, it's coming because they're in pain, like Rabbi Meirov said. And you have to be there and hear them out and say, okay, how can I improve? Very, very beautiful. Okay, next question. There's about 4 index cards that are all asking the same thing. So I'm going to ask Rabbi Rutenberg this. The question is, what if my wife and I or my husband and I are not on the same page parenting? One person's like, oh yeah, whatever the kid wants to do. The other person's more like drill sergeant, and vice versa. What if they're not on the same page parenting? That's so normal because we all come from our own different parenting. Usually we're rebelling. We want to do the opposite of what we got, even though they made us great people, but we don't realize it. And so, Rabbi Rutenberg, what do you say? They're not on the same page. Should they fight? Should they split the kids in half? What do you say?
So I'd actually like to hear what Dr. Zimmerman says about this, but I'll give my little answer. I think we have to start off with an assumption that we're not going to be on the same page, right? Because there's no two people that are on the same page, and if they're on the same page, that's a really boring relationship. And it's actually healthy for our kids to see different approaches and to see, parents that are not exactly on the same page, because chances are they're not going to marry someone that's exactly on the same page as them. So first we have to start with that hanacha, that assumption, that we're not going to be exactly on the same page with our spouse. I grew up in a different home than my spouse. Each one saw different things. We're nature and nurture, every different factor. We're very, very different in what we bring to the table in a relationship. And the goal of a healthy relationship is to complement each other and hopefully to come to be on the same page, so to speak, in the approach to bringing up our children, but not to assume that we're going to be on the same page. Because if we're going to assume that we're on the same page, we're going to be frustrated most of the time. They say Einstein's definition of insanity, I'm not sure if he actually said it, is repeating the same thing again and again and expecting a different result. And I know many people that have this approach about a lot of things in life, even about in-laws issues, about a lot of different things. Like, I don't understand. Why don't you see it my way? Why don't you see it my way? So the first thing is to understand that we are different, and we need to find a common ground, so to speak, and how to address these issues. But first to understand that there is a natural difference, and I think it's also important, just to answer in a nutshell, but obviously you could talk so much about this topic, is to have some red lines. So I think that each parent should have things that they consider red lines and communicate that with each other so that they're on the same page, so to speak, about what the red lines are on things that they are not open to having happen in a family situation. That's what I would say for them.
Okay. What would you like to say, Dr. Zimmerman?
Well, I think it's great what Rutenberg said. I'll take a step back to enhance his point. It goes back to actually the beginnings of Shalom Bayit. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein would give young couples one sort of bracha and piece of wisdom when they would come to him for a blessing for their marriage. He would say, like Chazal say, "Keshem shepartzufeim shonot, kach deoseim shonot." The same way no two people look alike, no two people think alike. You have to learn to respect the other person's thinking. Now that, again, much easier said than done. So we're not meant to think alike. There's a reason it's ezer kenegdo, that often the other half of us that was split off, all the stuff that is separate and different and opposite, is now supposed to come back and merge. And to touch on this, we didn't touch on it in marriage. We're selling everybody a false bill of goods. I love the fact that Rutenberg's talking about our real humanists, we're all going to be different. The same thing with marriage. We give people this fake idea, you're going to get together, it's going to be the same page, the same thinking, the same family structures, and it's going to be mazel tov. Like when in our Jewish stories, it's like, and they got married, as if that's the finish line. As far as I'm concerned, that's the move from the minors to the majors, and now let's see what happens, both in terms of your midos, in terms of your connection. So in terms of being on the same page, what Rabbi Rutenberg is saying, and even in terms of demonstrating for children, how do you deal with differences of opinion? How do you deal with conflict? How do you do assertiveness but not aggressiveness? How can you handle, and Chazal were very explicit about this, that the mothers were more naturally nurturing, and they needed, that's why Yiras Aim comes first versus Kibbut Av, and the kid naturally feels a certain bond. There are gender differences, there are approaches. Now, also, we did talk about red lines, and red lines are a tricky business, because as you heard from Meirov, people grow up in certain houses with certain expectations, and you're making a red line. My father did this, his grandfather did this. I don't want to grow up with some snowflake here, some American snowflake. I'm gonna beat him back into the old country, and we have to be very, very careful about that. Not to say that in the past that was inappropriate or wrong, but to say that, like both the Gedolim and the research are very clear that doesn't work for the children of today. So there are certainly certain red lines, but how do you handle that? So this message actually of you have to be on the same page, I've seen countless karbanos in my office because a very unhealthy spouse would do highly toxic things to the children, and the other spouse stayed quiet. And the children actually have bigger complaints and more hurt about the healthy person. Why did you let this happen to me? Why didn't you stand up? That needs to be done in a very careful way. And on a lot of things, if you're having extreme differences, so aside for trying to figure out what's a problem in yourself and in the relationship, so always, like Rabbi Rutenberg said, you start internally, then you go to the relationship. And also, there's a big notion here in America, self-made person. Nobody should be self-made. That's why you have friends, family members, you have rabbis, and that's why, Baruch Hashem, there are countless mental health professionals. Reach out for guidance and help. If you're getting stuck and you really can't work it through, and you've made really proper attempts at speaking it out in a kind way, and you can't get there, get yourself help. You could save generations like this, because the kids will see the level of conflict, they'll see the level of dysfunction, and they will pass it forward. So the best thing often you could do is work on your own stuff, and then work on your relationship, and if you need help, get help.
All right. Beautiful, thank you. That's, very, very excellent point that you're making. Both of you, it's normal to disagree. And sometimes, there's nothing to do, and you shouldn't be embarrassed. Go to a rabbi, go to a therapist, go to a mentor, and have someone work through how you guys should do it together. Or else it's not going to be too much fun. So these three men are available. We have two rabbis and a therapist. And no, we have one rabbi, one therapist, and one rabbi therapist. Official.
So call him first, guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
His number is?
Okay, everyone's numbers will be available on their website. Okay. Next question. Okay, so next question we have is for Rabbi Meirov. What happens when one of the spouses does something wrong? Is like whatever it is, something outside of the red lines. How does a couple deal with that? They weren't expecting it. You know, it could be, we have so many different things outside of red lines. Either they're watching something they're not supposed to, the other spouse catches them, they're doing something they're not supposed to. What happens? Is there reconciliation? How do we get back to being the shalom?
So one thing I always tell couples when I sit down with them, either before they get married or while they're already married, I tell them a famous story, the Moshe Schneider. He was once conversing with Moshe Sternbach, and while they were conversing, a young man walks by and says, Kvod Harav, I get a mazal tov. What happened? I'm getting married next week. Okay, mazal tov. And he says, Rabbi, give me a bracha. He says, what bracha do you want? He says, give me a bracha that we should have a perfect marriage. Everything should be smooth. We shouldn't have any fights and any problems. Everything should be, no bumps in the road. And he's waiting for the bracha. And he's waiting and waiting and waiting, and no bracha is coming. He says, Rabbi, what happened? He says, I'm not going to give you this bracha, because I know this will never happen. No such thing as a perfect marriage and everything is smooth. I will give you a bracha, however, that you should have the wisdom and the inner strength to overcome the challenges of marriage life. Now, with that being said, like I believe Rabbi Rutenberg said before, if you catch your child doing something wrong, your reaction is very important. If you're going to come and react in a wild fashion, you might destroy him even more. Don't make it worse than what it is. Realize the mistake that he did, or she did, was a mistake that's part of their natural growth process. Same thing really applies to the husband and wife as well. They're not angels because they got married. He and she still have their faults. He and she still have their challenges. So yes, there are certain red lines, but the way you react also has a tremendous impact on what's going to happen down the road. So I think everything has to be done b'chokhmah. Certain things cannot be tolerated, 100%, but everything should be done with wisdom, know how to react, when to react, to get the proper advice from the proper professionals for how to deal with the situation. Because if you can take the problem and just hide it under the carpet, it's going to get worse and worse. And you're not talking to him, he's not talking to you. Next thing you know, the relationship is going down the drain worse than it should have been. So everything has to be done, like I said, with the proper dosage and ingredients of reaction. Because remember, everyone's a human being involved in the situation. No one's looking to harm anyone, chad v'shalom. And mistakes happen, and certain mistakes are worse than others. But always make sure you react in the proper fashion and get the proper guidance after it happens.
Okay, beautiful. Okay, Rabbi Rutenberg, what are some good Shalom Bayit books one can learn with one's spouse? I know you enjoy reading, we sometimes discuss, I know you enjoy reading a lot of Shalom Bayit books. Which ones would you recommend? And are there any Jewish ones?
Like you mentioned, there are a lot of books out there. One of the ones that come to mind is Meir Winkler.
10 minutes a day to a better marriage.
Yeah, 10 minutes a day to a better marriage. He has a very interesting approach where you allow your spouse to say something for 10 minutes and don't respond for 24 hours. I don't know how many people were successful doing that approach, but even just the idea of it, even if you wait 24 minutes to respond, like that's a very a good book. I'm not trying to get away from the question, but I can't say enough. Like when I do this relationship class that I give at Emet to couples before their wedding, one of the things I ask them in the class is, what's the most important thing to work on in your marriage? And I usually do this in my office, and I have a computer screen that's off, and I ask them to look at the screen for a second, and they see a picture of themselves, and I say, that's it. So I can't emphasize enough that if you really want to have Shalom Bayit, and the most important place to first turn is to self-growth. Whether it's working on an issue that you had even before marriage, or whether it's working on an issue that came up during marriage, to work on yourself because a healthy marriage is made up of two healthy individuals striving to become one. I know it's a mouthful, but a healthy marriage is made up of two healthy individuals striving to become one. I can't tell you how many times, and I'm sure Dr. Zimmerman has had the same thing, where people have come thinking that the problem was the marriage, when in reality the problem was themselves. And of course it affected the marriage, and of course the marriage is a secondary aspect, and the marriage needs to be addressed as well. But just like we know with an infection, right? If you treat the fever and not the infection, you're never going to really treat the patient. You have to treat the infection. And if a person has an issue like you said with anxiety, you have to treat the anxiety or get the anxiety to be in a manageable place. I've literally had people come to me and say, a woman came to me, maybe it was like 2 or 3 years ago, and she says, I need marriage therapy. I said, why? She goes, because I have anxiety. And I'm like, okay, so you should get individual therapy. She goes, I don't want to say it's my fault. And I'm sure this is true for many situations. And I said, if your spouse is not supporting you in this, then you need marriage therapy. And I literally asked her, I said, if you had an infection on your foot, would you go to a marriage therapist or would you go to a podiatrist, right? And we all know we'd go to a podiatrist, right? So I think it's really, really important, even though we strive as a relationship to be a unit, but it's a unit of two individuals. And that means that just to answer the question, as much as Shalom Bayit books are important, Rabbi Schaefer's book, 10 Dumbest Mistake That Smart Couples Make, a great book. He has a video book, which is great. There's a lot of good stuff out there, but I can't emphasize enough the importance of looking into yourself first. Right, if I could just add one more thing.
Sure, you have the mic.
There's a word that is often used in relationships called triggered, right? People say, my spouse triggered me, my child triggered me, somebody triggered me. And maybe I'm being a little bit like going far with this, but if you think of the word trigger, right, it comes from like a gun, right? So if somebody triggered you, it's like your gun went off, right, and a bullet went out. And you're basically blaming the person who caused you to pull the trigger, right? Now, if you're in a shooting range and somebody jumped and made you pull the trigger, that's maybe understandable. But if you're in your regular married life or you're in your house on a regular given day and you got triggered, maybe you should look at yourself and say, why was I walking around with a loaded gun, with a bullet in the chamber, with no safety and going like this? So I can focus on the fact that you triggered me, or I can focus on maybe I need to be calmer. Maybe I need to work on my anger. Maybe I need to work on my self-development, my self-confidence, my own ego, so then every time my spouse looks at me the wrong way, I don't jump and take it so personally, etc. Right? So the easy response is just to say, if you don't look at me that way, if you don't say that to me in front of my mother, if you don't do this, if you don't do that, I won't get triggered. But that's not a growth response. So if we really want to grow as a person, we need to really look into ourselves.
Okay, excellent. All right, so basically, the books you should read together. First of all, read some self-help books individually. Then we have Dr. Rabbi Schaefer, 10 mistakes people make. Rabbi Schaefer. Then we also have Dr. Winkler.
Wickler. W-I-K-L-E-R.
Okay.
10 minutes a day to better marriage.
10 minutes a day to
Also,
better
I would say
marriage.
anything from John Gottman. Again, the hashkafa, some of them is not our hashkafa,
Right.
but the concepts are very, very on target. And then if somebody wants to go even a little deeper, EFT, emotion focused therapy.
Right, Hold Me Tight, I think is the name of the book.
Sue Johns.
So there's other ideas related to attachment theory, and there's a book called Attached, where there's a little deeper stuff. Maybe you have a...
One important note I think Rabbi Rutenberg alluded to, like all these non-Jewish books are going to have some things in it that we're going to find like very alarming, so or many things. So just pick out the concepts. The concepts are there. The concepts are very good derech eretz, but some of the examples are not Jewish.
So just to jump in on what Rutenberg is saying, there's a few things. First of all, we have to know that the only thing marriage cures is being single. Many people have an expectation that I'm going to get married and it's going to help, whether it's my self-esteem, my anxiety, my depression, my issues with my family. It doesn't do any of that. And again, we're promulgating this idea that you get marriage as the end of the road, and it's really the beginning, and often is a much bigger trigger for many things. For those of you that are comfortable with Hebrew, Reb Shlomo Volba Zatzal has a Kudris Hadracha for Chasanim. It's a very small pamphlet you can get in Svarim stores. There are some that somebody put English words on top of it. I don't know if you can get hold of that. Certainly some private. And it's fantastic. There's a one for women as well. But his main message there is, this is from page 1. It's out the gate. He says to this young person who's getting married, to this boy, so tell me, what's going to be the foundation of your marriage? And what do you think the boy responds? A nice, good yeshiva boy? Anybody? Love. Right? So he says love and understanding. And Rav Wolbe says, I hate to burst your bubble, but love, he says, any love that's dependent on anything, davar batal ahava. If that thing goes to bits, there goes the love. And he says, inevitably, in your marriage, it's going to go to bits. Understanding, it's a very nice theory right now. You're dating, you sound great, wow, you're ashkafically so aligned, you like the same things. I tell most of the people I work with, somewhere between 6 weeks and 6 months into the marriage, the idealization phase, as we call it in a relationship, goes down, and then it's all of a sudden what? And it's like, what the heck was I thinking? I should have married the other one. What was I doing? They sold me a fake bill of goods. The whole 9 yards, right? And those of you giggling, at least you're honest with yourself. Those of you like, I don't know what he's talking about. You just didn't look anywhere in the mirror in your subconscious. As Rabbi Rutenberg is really, his source for this goes way, way back. Both Rav Wolbe talks about, the Baal Shem Tov famously says, our interactions with other people are designed as a mirror. Now that's an incredibly Jewish way to live, of internalizing stress and issues and say, what can I do? At the same time, we have to be exceedingly careful. In the same way Rabbi Meirov addressed the question before, there are red lines. And Chaz v'shalom, somebody's being abused or beaten, or somebody say, that's not for you to look at and say, what did I do to cause him to get so angry that he smacked me? Right? There are things where there are absolute red lines, and you shouldn't blame yourself. If if your spouse is caught doing something that's way over the red line, you shouldn't say, oh, wow, what did I do? I must have been such a bad spouse they did that. They might have their issues. Now, again, you should still use seichel, and you should go slow. And we have seen, Baruch Hashem, with the right help and interventions, even people who've gone through Gehinnom can stay together when it's appropriate. There's a lot of help out there, but again, not something you want to do on your own, to be very cautious. So Rav Wolbe's Kunshas HaChasanim, so what does he answer? So what should be the basis? And again, this is not such an exciting thing. The Pasuk says, Tov lagever ki yisa ol b'ne'urov. It is good for a youth to accept a yoke in his youth. And he says that, oh, ishus. I have to accept, what is marriage? Marriage is avodas Hashem. It is avoda of yourself. It is avoda. We have to switch our mind that marriage is now bliss. Right? I get to have intimacy. I get to have my own house. I get to have my own wife. No, no, no. This is the beginnings of real avoda. And if anybody here is honest and you're married and you have kids, what are the two biggest places of real avodas Hashem in your life? Is by far your marriage and your parenting. And when we look at it and we give that over to children, we put the expectation in, oh, how can I grow? How can we grow? That changes the landscape, and we can deal with struggles, because it's not, oh, I got hit by a Mack truck that wasn't supposed to be there. No, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us tremendous challenges sometimes as ways for us to grow. And the more we look at it as such, from a Jewish perspective, that is how we go through and build the foundation for life. And the real solid foundation is that commitment to that forever. This is our avoda. We're going to make this go. This is my responsibility.
Right. Beautiful. One question also that people ask a lot is, especially us coming from the former Soviet Union, like, why do we have to do so much avoda? Why do we have to work so hard on our marriage, on our parenting? Like, it seems like our parents, our grandparents, it just worked, whatever. Right? They didn't know anything. Here we have 100,000 self-help books. There was zero. And America also, So the answer is, one answer that I saw in a very interesting book, actually, that's a very good Shalom Bayit book called Beyond Mars and Venus. It was written by the same Mars and Venus guy, but he said the generation has changed and now we need Beyond Mars and Venus. So he said in the previous generations, this is so important. They really just wanted to be role mates. Right? So I have role A, you have role B, whatever, we're not going to fight about it. We're not going to have so much connection. We have different roles, we get it done. In our generation, we want to be soulmates, right? We want to be our spouse's best friend, have intimacy, go on vacation, have everything be great, not yell at each other. We're not looking for a quote-unquote partnership, right? We are looking really for a soulmate. So that takes a lot of work. Role mates is like a job, it doesn't take so much work. Let's see, whatever happens, happens. Soulmates takes a lot of work. All right, we're switching back to parenting for a moment. Rabbi Meirov, how does one encourage their teenagers to become more excited about Judaism?
How to encourage our teenagers to be more excited about Judaism. So the truth is, first of all, the school or yeshiva you send them to has a big impact. Certain schools, certain yeshivot are all about, okay, here's Jewish culture, Jewish ritual, and Shalom Al Yisrael. Then you're wondering, why doesn't my son want to have greatness in Judaism? Other yeshivot really push your children to try to reach greatness and try to recognize their potential. So putting them in the right environment, that's already step number one. But step number two, more than any yeshiva, it's really the atmosphere you have at home. How excited are you for Shabbat? How excited are you for going to a Shiur Torah? Does your wife have to push you to get out of the house? And your kids see, your wife keeps saying, come on, Shimon, get up, get up. I don't know, I'm tired. Okay, I went to a Shiur last week, leave me alone. Then the kid sees the father has no interest. Like, why should I be interested? If the father is sitting at the Shabbat table and he's kvetching and complaining, the Osavot this week didn't come out like last week, my mother does it much better than you, and he sees the constant bickering between the husband and wife, like why would the kid want to enjoy a Shabbat meal when he gets married? Why would he want to make an official seudah? So to build that excitement, you got to make things exciting. You got to show that you're excited. If the mother is complaining about tzniut being a burden on her, why would the daughter want to have tzniut part of her life? But if she's going to look beautiful within its tznius boundaries, and her daughters see it, that she's confident, she's proud, and she's not complaining about it, it's going to motivate them to say, you know what, Baruch Hashem, I can go with a certain path and still look beautiful. So a lot of it really begins in the home, in your actual home, but obviously the school setting also has a tremendous impact as well. So you got to make sure that you get in the proper balance when it comes to these matters.
Okay. All right. Modeling for sure. Meaning like the children follow the parents. It's not foolproof, of course, but that's a good starting point. Very good. Yes.
If I can just add to what Rabbi said. Firstly, 100%. That your own attitudes are really the most important. Somebody once said to me, like, if the child sees that the parent is super excited about the Super Bowl, but like just going begrudgingly through Shabbos, then the message they're going to get is that the Super Bowl is more important to my parents. So working on ourselves again to be excited. Where Moshe Feinstein said, he was always bothered why so many Jews went away from Judaism, even though the parents sacrificed so much for Torah, gave up their jobs for Shabbos. And he said it's because the fathers would say, it's hard to be a Jew. And the kids are very, very intuitive, especially today. They pick up on so much at a very young age. And they picked up on the parents' sort of negativity about being religious, even though the parents were going through the motions, or not just the motions, even though the parents were passionate about it, but they picked up on a certain negativity. And I think we all have to be conscious that in every generation there's a different Shver Zayniyid. There's a different moment that we can be. So if we're sitting at the Shabbos table and our kids hear us complaining about tuition or complaining how expensive the groceries are, we might not realize that we're just sitting with our friends, having some shot of whiskey and just talking about this. And there is a lot to complain about both of those topics. But the reality is, if our kids hear this negativity, and if we're living that negativity, then, and they say 80% of communication is nonverbal. So if we're living that negativity, if we're not taking an approach of, yes, it's hard, but it's so worth it, our kids are going to pick up on that. The second thing I would just say, and this is, I have 5 boys, and ranging from 10 to 23, from 13 to 23, and the thing that I try to tell myself is that this is a separate human being than myself. And I think one of the problems we have sometimes as parents is we're either not involved enough or we're too involved, and sometimes when we're too involved, we take it personally when our child, let's say a child doesn't want to go to shul in the morning. And we take it personally. It must be I'm a bad father. It must be I didn't do enough. And then we start putting our stress on the kid and the child and like guilting them into going to shul because we're bad parents if they're not in shul. And the reality is that the child is its own human being, is his own human being. And children go through phases. And sometimes they might be going through a phase, hormonal phase. It's a crazy amount, I mean, your book talks about it. There's a crazy amount of hormonal changes that go on, like between like 13 and 16 or 12, depending on the child. And this child is going through crazy stuff. And it could be the child at that moment is not in such a happy place, period. Not just about Judaism. You might see it in Judaism, but that child might be going through just a difficult time in general. So it's important to be compassionate to the child, to recognize it's not always about you, and to give them the space to go through those times. Also maybe to get them a good therapist, or to get them help if needed, or other things. But to not take it so personally when your child is not, it's much easier said than done. Okay, I'll say firsthand, much easier said than done. But not to take it so personally when your child is going through a certain phase.
Okay.
Can I ask a question based off of that?
If that's the moderator. He's in charge.
With this one time, we'll say yes.
As far as the tuition goes, let's say you're sitting with a bunch of different families and that just comes up. How would you approach it if other people are talking, kids are listening?
So, okay, since I'm the moderator, I'm gonna answer all studio questions. So this comes up a lot, and the best way to do it, and it's a Gemara, right? And it says clearly, the question is, what if people are talking about, oh, tuition is so expensive, Forest Hills High School is free. So, of course, first of all, you say, Chazaq has some great scholarships for you. And then you say, it says in the Talmud, specifically, that any money you spend on your child's education, Hashem will give you back. There's so many different ways to make money now, and there's a lot of ways to lose money also. You could have bought Bitcoin whenever, stocks, bonds, side hustles, your job, accidents, tickets, apartments, so many ways to make or lose money. But Hashem says whatever you spend on Talmud Torah, on tuition, will not be taken away from you. Just don't make it in conversation. Anything for Talmud Torah, there's no problem. Okay, next question. I would like all the panel to just give us your best answer for this, best practices. One thing, how can, it's like the toughest question. I'm really putting a lot on the panel, but you guys are experts. We want to hear from all of you. How can we create emotional and physical intimacy between husband and wife? What's the best thing for that? The toughest question? Yes. How can we create emotional, physical intimacy between husband and wife?
Right, Rutenberg really said it many times. It's work on your own internals, and then communication. Communication, meaning talk about and try to work through things, carve out time so that you can do it. And again, get off some of the romantic notions of, oh, things are just going to be spontaneous. Schedule time to talk about household tasks, separate time to just in schmooze about emotional connection stuff, and schedule time for intimacy, because otherwise you'll have complaints, because it's not going to happen, because it's the reality of the world. So you want to have other things that come about. We need to deal with reality. We have to get out of fantasy, and the world around us is drilling us with all these fantasy ideas. Deal with your reality to the best of your ability. Work on yourself, work on that connection, make sure and prioritize it, as we discussed earlier.
Okay, beautiful. Rabbi Rutenberg, best practices how to create emotional, physical intimacy between husband and wife. Rabbi Meirov.
So the truth is, just to add to what they said earlier, we got to figure out what brings true happiness in a marriage. What is the source of simcha in a marriage? That's all we want, right? We got married, we want to be happy, keep it going. So I always tell people the following message, which I think could lead us on to this question. If you look, where are my Israelis here? Who is Israeli? Avi, yeah? Avi number 2. You also speak Hebrew, no? So Avi number 2. How do you say family in Hebrew? Mishpacha. Mishpacha, right? And happiness, simcha. Very good. So simcha and mishpacha actually have the same letters. Simcha means happiness, mishpacha means family. But there's only one extra letter that mishpacha has over simcha. What's the extra letter? Pei. The letter pei. Very good. You know why? Because people think that happiness is the house that I have, the car that I drive, the vacations. That's not happiness. Those give you happy moments. But happiness, simcha, mishpacha, the pei means what? your mouth. Your communication is what brings happiness in the family. If there's proper communication between the husband and the wife, then you'll see tremendous simcha in the house. Once there's communication, you have emotional love. Once you have emotional, that leads to the physical. But it all starts with communication. Everything else, Rabotai, is all fantasies from Hollywood. If you don't have the proper communication, then everything else just falls apart. So I think it's very important, like they mentioned a few times in the panel over here, putting the phone away, learning how to turn off the phone, how to communicate in the proper environment, because communication really is the foundation for everything else in this relationship.
Beautiful.
Thank you. The only thing I would add to that is I think it's so important when it comes to emotional and physical intimacy to remember that both you and your partner have a need for both of those things. And sometimes one person may have a stronger need at certain times, but it's human for a person to have, just like we have a physical need to eat, we have emotional needs, and we have physical needs and desires for connection in all these different areas. And I think what's important is to go on what Dr. Zimmerman said, is the scheduling part. And I think one of the hardest parts about the scheduling part is usually we're waiting to have this like feeling, and we're like, okay, if I have the feeling, then we'll go out on a date together. But if I'm not feeling the connection with my partner, so then it's like, okay, so why should we want to go out? But that's very much the opposite, because it's when you have those feelings, you actually don't need to go out. It's when you need to go out because you don't have those feelings, and because you're not feeling it right now. And this is where, like, the Torah's laws of Taharat Mishpacha really strengthen our marriages, partially for this reason, because it gives a renewal, a constant chizuk to the connection, and that's what we need on an emotional and physical level. Usually, almost every couple that I speak to, both are craving these connections, but sometimes they're embarrassed, they're afraid, they're like, oh, they're hurt because of an argument that happened 2 weeks ago, to be vulnerable and express the fact that they're missing something. So recognizing that this is like the same way you wouldn't go, you know, a whole 2 days of not eating because you had some bad food 3 days ago. You need these things, and we need to have these connections, and we have to find time and create space for both emotional and physical connection, and through the connection it creates more connection. You know, in my relationship class, I mentioned, I think I heard this from Rabbi David Ordman from Arachim. He said that you know, I don't tell people I love my spouse. I tell them I want to love my spouse, and I really connect to that idea, because I want to means even if at this moment I'm not feeling the connection. The Torah tells us Ava, right? Ava, we give and therefore we love. That we create the connection. We create the connection through giving, through emotional connection, through physical connection. And I think it's so important to keep this front and center in our mind. And like Dr. Zimmerman said, this goes, or Meirov said, goes so much against our culture. Like the culture we live in says, oh, if you have that magical feeling, then go show up for your spouse. And if you don't have that magical feeling, wait till you get that magical feeling. And a lot of people are waiting.
Wow. Okay. That's really great advice. Don't wait. Make it happen. It's going to come. Actions lead to feelings. Beautiful. Okay. So we have time for one more question, and then we're going to let our amazing panel.
I have a question.
But remember, if you're asking a student a question, I'm answering it. So,
What age should I let my kid have an iPhone?
right. Well, that's a great question. So a lot of people ask that. So,
Yeah, you gave me the wrong.
right. So I'm not sure an iPhone is ever appropriate for a kid, but I'm not even sure adult. What's a good? Several people actually asked that. What time? What age appropriate would be cell phones? I can only give you my opinion. So my less expert opinion is for sure not before high school. If you can hold by high school, it's going to be hard. And of course, you want to get them dumb phone, preferable, or extremely tagged iPhone if you have to. But before high school, you really can avoid it. You're smaller than them. You can control them better. So does anyone disagree with that? Before high school for the iPhones? We may have some disagreements from the studio, from the panel.
Again, it's very easy to give a klal, right? It's very easy to say, Meirov was talking about Ramat Yo's advice, which was applicable when Ramat Yo gave it. The computer faces your home. How many of you, what percentage of your time are you on a computer that's facing anywhere?
Right, besides your face.
So it was brilliant advice at the time. So if your kid is in a yeshiva where you sent them to, and Rabbi Meirov talked about choosing the appropriate yeshiva where they're going to have this value, and what happens is, but so-and-so has it. Everybody has it. And you find out there are 2 kids who have it, and that's a problem. One of the best things you can actually work with the yeshiva to say, let's delay it. Nobody today say, oh, I wish I gave my kid a device earlier. Never heard that in my clinical practice yet, right? Now, if you can delay it, it's better. That being said, if you put your kid in a school where everybody in 8th grade already has it, and you're going to be the one holdout to 9th grade, first of all, you're probably not going to be the holdout. They'll just have an iPhone you didn't buy for them. Second of all, you might tear apart your relationship. So again, relationship goes here, and then everything else. But also, people think, I got the iPhone, I didn't get an iPhone. An iPhone that you just got with, you don't know what's flying, what apps, what are parental controls, is a nuclear bomb, right? And actually, I got my daughter an iPad before any other device. Why? Because the other devices that Yeshiva was recommending, I cannot get proper filtering on. But the iPad, I know how to use really well, and there are great parental controls on. I could set the parental controls to go off. You don't want to be having, oh, give it back to me, come on, this, that. You want as much automatic that it shuts off, and the limits are that, not a negotiation. So there are a lot of chokhmah that needs to go into both when you buy things, what you buy, and then an ongoing need to know what you're doing with it, within the context and framework of your child's life and in your value system.
Right. Okay, got it. Good answer, good answer. But I think try to hold off as much as possible. If you get to high school, it's great. But don't ruin your relationship. Now, we're going to have words of bracha and final thoughts from all our panels. Start with Rabbi Meirov.
One more time, what is this?
Words
of bracha, you said?
Words of bracha.
I didn't bring my...
Final thoughts.
Pirkas Hedya, in the worst case scenario.
I guess we'll end off by saying, there's a famous story with Shlomo HaMelech, which I like to share, which is a very powerful lesson. Shlomo HaMelech was Chacham Mikol Adam, he was the wisest of all men. And, he understood the language of the birds, of the dogs. We don't understand our spouse sometimes, right? He understood everything. He knew what every single plant, what was it good for, what kind of healing, what kind of refuah, what kind of vitamins, whatever it may be. So he was obviously a Chacham Mikol Adam, the greatest of all wisdom. And there was once a famous story that took place with him, that Siamese twins came to him. They were, one body, 2 heads. And they said, Shlomo HaMelech, we need your guidance, we need your psak on something very important. Our father passed away, and we're not sure. We consider 1 person or 2 people. How do we divide the inheritance? If we're 2, we get double. If we're 1, we only get 1. So what would you tell us? What's the psak in this situation? Shlomo HaMelech, b'chokhmato, what did he do? He asked one of his servants, give me a little towel, and give me a cup of hot water. And what happened was, he covered the head of one of the... And then he took the hot water, and he, mamish, put a little drop on the other head. And what happened was, he heard both screaming, ouch! So Shlomo said, oh, you both said ouch, then you really what? Won. You really won. I'm sure they got upset, like, well, couldn't you shut up? You could have got double inheritance, right? But the point is, he says, oh, you really won. If you feel the pain of each other, you're one. If you're not bothered by your wife having a hard day or your husband being stressed out, there's something missing in the relationship. I'm not saying you have to become like Rav Aryeh Levine, the famous story with him going to the doctor with his wife. He told the doctor, what was the exact line? How does it go?
Our foot hurts.
Our foot, no, I think her foot hurts us. How was it?
Our foot hurts.
Our foot hurts. Right? And the doctor says, well, what are you saying? It wasn't just a good pickup line by a 19-year-old kid. He was already in his 70s, right? He really felt it, that his wife's pain was his pain. And I think if we realize that HaKadosh Baruch Hu put us together, we really won two halves that were put together, Baruch Hashem, after you got married, and love each other to the point where you care about each other. When your wife is disappointed or your husband is disappointed, it bothers me. Let me see how I could, fix this up. Let me reach out to her. Let me make something special for her. Let me make something special for him. If you feel each other's pain and feel each other's simcha, then you're going in the right path. But if chas v'shalom you're not feeling that emotional connection, then that's where you have to contact Rabbi Rutenberg, like I said before, and he'll sit down with you and give you hopefully the proper guidance.
It's a good referral.
You want to close?
No, I'm still working my thought.
Okay, so when you're on these panels, you don't know what to expect. So we go with Shlomo HaMelech. It's hard to go wrong. We'll follow what Rabbi Meirov said. So two of the most essential lines, right? The wisest person of all time says when he talks about human dynamics, what does he describe? Kamayim panim lepanim kein leva adam. The same way water reflects, right? When you look in the water, you see your reflection. So too is the heart of one person to the other. So the first step, we'll reiterate, how can I get myself into a place where I can reflect positivity, where I can feel positivity? So many people today, the yetzer hara, shame, toxicity, trauma, whatever you want to label it, makes them feel I'm unworthy, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not accomplished enough, I'm not wealthy enough, I'm not good enough as a spouse, as a parent, right? That's its job, yetzer hara, to be filled with negativity and to knock myself down. So my first work is, how do I deal with my own negativity and toxicity so that I'm a pleasant person? Even I'm not that voice is not going away because it's part of the spiritual forces that we have to fight against. We have to know that we're here to do work in the darkness. I'll segue for a second. Today, we have 18, 19, 20-year-old kids and fathers going off into the tunnels in Gaza. And how do they go in? They go in with koach, with singing. It's unbelievable. You watch these clips. What on earth is going on there? Why? Because they go in with a sense of absolute mission and purpose. That's exactly where I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to go into the darkest, but you're facing death, torture. If one of them catches you, Khalila, what they'll do to you, you beg for death. Why? They have a sense of absolute meaning and purpose. I'm supposed to be in the darkest of places. We often think, Chaz v'shalom, we have darkness inside of us. We have our own triggers, as you heard. We have all our issues, our mental health issues, our addiction issues, our histories. We think this is off my path. It's not where I'm supposed to be. We have to remember, no. You're here to go in the darkest of tunnels. The choshech of the dark side, of the yetzer hara, of the negativity, is beyond. But that's why you have a corresponding neshama, purity and power. But it's constant avoda. So your first step is your own work, appreciating your mission and purpose. Yeah, it's not going on a clip. Shai Grauscher is not coming to your house. But this is the purpose. The darkness is there for you to grow. So you do it yourself. Then you reflect positivity and mission and purpose to your spouse and to your children. Then Shlomo HaMelech's message, Chanoch lana al pi darko, you heard they're independent people. I can't bend them to my will. I have to figure out what they need. When that iPhone is for that kid. When the discipline for that child. When do I push them to go to shul? When do I back off? It's all Shlomo HaMelech's wisdom. And ultimately, I'm the psychologist, so I could be more the rabbi. So I could say, when we try our best, we're going to be deeply imperfect, and we have to accept that. We are deeply imperfect. Our spouses are going to be deeply imperfect. Our children are going to be deeply imperfect. Hashem has plenty of malachim upstairs. When we try with our imperfections and our darkness and all the darkness around us to bring light in those small places, in those dark tunnels, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu joins us, and He helps. And then He protects ourselves, our marriages, and our children. We should all be zoche to see the ultimate revelation of light with Mashiach, and all together back with Shlomo HaMelech in the Beit Mikdash.
Amen. Okay, thank you. Rabbi Rutenberg.
Thank you, Dr. Zimmerman, Rabbi Meirov. Thank you to Rabbi Kigel, our moderator. So first of all, I just wanted to start by mentioning that although the war in Israel or in Eretz Yisrael is going on for months, we have to keep this front and center in our mind. And Dr. Zimmerman mentioned the soldiers that are going in, and have to be very cognizant of the families who are in pain, and so many different people who have been moved from their homes, and the hostages, and our tefillah should go out that we should see a very fast and speedy positive ending to this. I want to give a special Yashikach, Chazaq Baruch to everyone who came tonight, because just the fact that you're here means you probably don't need to be here, because you're prioritizing your relationships. And anyone who watches online, the fact that you're watching is also something. I just encourage everyone to make time for these things, because it's easy to not do that. The thought that I just wanted to end with is something that's been on my mind for last about a year or two. Something that I feel is people ask me all the time, what's the most important message that you could share? And often I can think of a lot of different things that are the most important. But I think that to me, one of the most important things is the idea of being intentional. What do you mean intentional? Which, like we talked about earlier, is very, very hard today. But because it's hard, that's why we need it more. Right? I always tell my students, one of the greatest proofs to the divinity of the Hashem, of the Torah, is the fact that Shabbos, which was given to us when we lived in tents and huts, is more relevant today than it was then. No human being could have created such a thing, right? Because as hard as it is to keep Shabbos today, we need it more than ever before. And as hard as it is to be intentional today, we need to be intentional more than ever before. And I think the idea of being intentional, whether it's in our relationship with Hashem, our relationship with our spouse, which are the two relationships that mirror each other the most, but it's also true in our relationship with our kids, is so important. We know that kavana, right? And when we daven, we're supposed to daven with kavana. We're supposed to live with kavana. You correct me. I think it's in the Shulchan Aruch. It says that one minute of davening with kavana is better than an hour without kavana. I think it's 1 minute of davening with kavana is better than an hour without kavana. And the same thing is true in our relationships. 1 minute of a connection with our spouse, with our kids, with kavana is better than an hour without kavana. And what I can suggest is really to be intentional about this, which means, just an example, that something, it might be that if you're coming home later in the day and you're not going to see your spouse till later at night, that you take 5 minutes to talk to them on FaceTime. Right? Why FaceTime? Why can't you do a regular phone call? Because if you do a regular phone call while you're doing something else, and you pause for 15 seconds. Oh yeah, right, yeah, of course. Yeah, how was your day? Oh yeah, and you repeat the same question. They actually feel worse after that phone call than they did if you hadn't called, right? And it's the same thing with our children. So being intentional. It's not about the amount of time. It's often just about just being intentional. And the other thought I would just emphasize is the importance of not comparing ourselves to others, right? We live in a society that I think social media has been really terrible at this, is that everyone's comparing themselves, and they're not even comparing themselves to the other person's real life. They're comparing themselves to what the other person posted on social media, or what the other person projects as their regular life, and it's all sheker, it's all lies. Because we're not even supposed to compare ourselves to our spouse. Because what might be easy for you is hard for your spouse, and vice versa. So working on ourselves not to compare, but just to show up the best that you can be, makes a very big difference. Thank you.
Beautiful. Okay. Big round of applause for our panel. Okay. And if anyone has any further questions, I'm sorry we couldn't get to everything. We got to the most cloudalistic, the most general questions. If anyone has any other questions, you can rewatch this on Torah anytime, or as Rabbi Meirov said, you can contact Rabbi Rutenberg. All right, thank you for coming.
Doctor.
Okay.